So you're not running for mayor, is that for sure?
You know, looking at the number of people that are in right now, I would probably say that. I've talked to my exploratory committee, and we were looking at the amount of money we needed to raise. The amount of money went up, it probably doubled from what I thought could be a $1.5 to $2 million race up to 4 to 5 minimum. And that might be out of my league. But the other aspect is, you know, I look at it as an alternative strategy, which is to lead the council on the issues as well, because they need someone that's newer to the game, that hasn't been around 20, 30, 40 years, to really talk to them about some of the issues that we're seeing throughout the national economy that are going to be affecting us.
The mayor is not going to be leaving until May of next year. What do you imagine he could do in between then and then to profit from what he needs to do before he leaves?
Yeah.
And do you think that the city council, knowing that they won't have to say yes all the time, will have the balls to fight some of his decisions?
It's a great question. The last city council meeting, it was amazing, absolutely amazing to see what people were thinking in terms of how they were going to stand up to the mayor. And we were having that conversation, and I'm looking at people going, "You've been voting with him for 20 years and you've never said boo." And all of a sudden at the city council meeting they were speaking out about how we were going to make it a tough budget season. But I think the other thing over the next few months that worries me is that he is looking to privatize more of the assets. We know that water was on the table, but we mounted a quick campaign with a lot of different organizations that jumped to the table and said we're going to put a stop to that, or at least mount an anti-water privatization game. He wants to reverse the flow of the Chicago River. Recycling, the festivals, and a lot of other things were on the table. Recycling is just, for a city that we claim to be as green as we are, is just a farce, and it always has been. And I think the aldermen, we take a lot of the brunt of, you know, people not having recycling or not getting their bins picked up, or people watching the waste. And that's part of that problem of the decentralization of the aldermen, you know, dealing with the nitpicky stuff and not focusing on the larger picture. So in conversations, I've talked about it with different people about the things that we're going to be watching out for. And we're just going to have to be vigilant and make sure that anything that does come up, we have a counter argument to it crafted as quickly as possible. And that's where having an open office like I have has been incredible, because I get information from people every day, all day, that I don't know about. You cannot keep track of everything, and I think it's incredible to have people knowing that they can openly communicate with our office and feed us information. And I don't mean people just outside of government, but city employees who are now calling up and saying, here's where you're going to find some waste. Here's what's going on at this location. And they're coming out of the woodwork, and it's a good thing.
I know you've kind of touched on it already, and you said that this is something you're looking to speak to in a matter of weeks, but can you hit like a top 5 of what the agenda should be for someone who is going to be thinking about running for mayor of the city?
Yeah.
Top 5, top 10, whatever number you like?
Sure. In terms of issues, right? Yeah. Well, the first thing is the finances of the city. So what I would like to see is a push to get that independent budget office in, so that when you start out as mayor, the first thing that you're doing is having almost a balanced approach, so that you have your administration putting out what you think should be on the books or what you think you should be spending, the legislative side looking at it and saying, here's what we need, and an independent budget office saying, that's great, but you might want to look at these other things, or we think you're overspending here or there. Tackling the management issue. In some cases, we have more managers than we have people on the ground. We have assistants to assistant directors, and we have hundreds of those, hundreds and hundreds. And those, I think, in some cases are people who do a great job. In some cases, it's people who have been catapulted up the ladder, who don't have the experience necessary to tackle those larger issues and to say, here's a more efficient way to do things. Some of those departments do that very well, some of them don't, but there are literally hundreds of people in those areas that need to be called out based on their experience. And you can do that if you have a good manager in place. Also looking at the TIFs. The TIFs are going to be one of the biggest ones. The numbers that are out there are varying because you have to look at the types of projects that are already in play for each one of the TIFs that are out there. The other thing to look at is recycling. Let's have a recycling plan in place so that instead of the trucking companies who were part of the hired truck scandal basically getting the contracts for recycling and being able to haul the recycling away, getting paid by the ton to take it to their own dumps, and then getting paid again for that, to cut those contracts and say, let's look at a real way of doing this. And I think we can do that by looking at other cities and saying, Seattle, you're doing a great job. How do you do it? And let's implement it here in Chicago. It's pretty easy to do. You have to have the commitment and the will to do it.
What opportunities do you see now for the formation of a progressive caucus within the City Council that can work in a unified manner towards some of these goals that you've outlined?
Essentially, what I would like to do is take those issues that we've been talking about and say, here's what the agenda should be for the next 4 years. You know I was right about the parking meters. You know I've been right about some of these other issues. And if you believe in what I'm saying and what I'm talking about and what the people behind me are saying, which is basically the populace of the city that's had enough and they want to see us take a different course. Those people I'm hoping to bring on board as new aldermen will come to the table and say, okay, here's an agenda that we can follow, and take that over the course of the next 4 years and say, let's stick to the agenda. Let's stick to the core issues that we need to address right now, and don't deviate from them. And it'll be, I think, my job and a few others to really keep them at the table